Have you ever had a day where you knew exactly what you needed to do? You woke up with a plan, clear and determined, a project to move forward, a chapter to write, a skill to practice, a business idea to research. You had every intention of making today the day you finally made progress. But then something shifted, almost imperceptibly. You thought, I'll just check my email quickly first, to clear the deck. Then, let me make a proper coffee, get settled in. Then you remembered an article you'd been meaning to read. A friend texted. You told yourself you'd just reply quickly. And before you knew it, the morning had evaporated. You felt a twinge of guilt, but quickly rationalized it. I work better after lunch anyway. I'll get started then with a fresh mind. After lunch, a strange fatigue set in. Not a physical tiredness, but a heavy mental fog. The task that seemed so clear in the morning now felt daunting, murky. You thought, I'm just not in the right headspace. I don't feel inspired. I'll wait until I feel that spark. Tomorrow I'll be ready. Tomorrow comes, the cycle repeats. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. That project, that dream, remains suspended in a perpetual someday. And you're left with a quiet, persistent feeling that you're not living up to your own potential, that you're capable of more, but something is always in the way. This isn't a story about laziness. It's not a story about a lack of talent or intelligence or opportunity. This is a story about an invisible war, a silent, daily, internal battle that every single person faces the moment they dare to do something that matters, something that stretches them, something that calls to a higher version of themselves. And here's the unsettling truth. Most people are losing this war without ever knowing the name of their enemy. Steven Pressfield, in his slim, potent, and brutally honest book, The War of Art, gives the enemy a name. He calls it resistance. He capitalizes it for a reason. Resistance is not a passive feeling or a mild preference for comfort. It's not a metaphor. Pressfield describes it as a real, active, intelligent, and malevolent force. Its sole purpose in the universe is to stop you, to keep you from becoming who you are meant to be, from doing the work you are meant to do. It doesn't attack you with monsters and lightning bolts. That would be easy to recognize, to fight. It's far more subtle and therefore far more dangerous. It attacks you with whispers. It whispers, you're not ready yet. You need more training, more credentials. It whispers, who do you think you are? You're not a real writer, a real artist, a real entrepreneur. It whispers, just watch one more episode, scroll a little longer, then you'll start. It whispers, what if you fail? What will people think? Wouldn't it be humiliating? It whispers, this is selfish. You should be doing something practical, something for others. It whispers, you need to do more research, plan more thoroughly, buy the perfect software, the perfect notebook, set up the perfect environment first. Resistance is the gap, the painful, palpable gap between the life you are currently living and the life you know, deep in your bones, you are meant to be living. Every dream you've ever shelved for someday, every goal you've talked about with friends but never acted on, every spark of an idea that flickered in your mind and then faded, resistance was there, quietly, efficiently, smothering it. And here is perhaps the most crucial, life-changing insight Pressfield delivers in the entire book. The strength of your resistance is directly proportional to the importance and value of your work to your soul's evolution. Let that sink in. The more a project means to you, the more it calls to your true self, the more terrifying and threatening resistance will find it. So, that intense feeling of dread when you sit down to write the first page of your novel, that powerful urge to suddenly clean the entire garage, reorganize your bookshelf, or help your cousin with his taxes when it's time to work on your business plan, that's not a sign to quit. That's not proof you're on the wrong path. That's the proof you're on the right one. That overwhelming resistance is the confirmation, proof that the work in front of you matters deeply. Resistance only fights what it fears, and what it fears most is your evolution, your transformation, your ascent. If a task elicits no resistance, it's probably not that important to your core being. Most of us profoundly misunderstand the battlefield. We misdiagnose the problem. We think our enemy is a lack of discipline, so we buy planners and download apps. We think it's a lack of inspiration, so we wait for a muse to descend. We think it's bad time management, so we consume endless content on productivity hacks, trying to optimize every minute. But Pressfield delivers the hard, unvarnished truth. Waiting is resistance's greatest and most potent weapon. The amateur waits. The amateur believes in the mythical, romantic notion of inspiration. The amateur is a fair-weather soldier. They work only when they feel like it, when conditions are perfect, when the motivation magically arrives. The amateur believes they must feel confident, feel ready, feel inspired before they can possibly act. The professional operates from an entirely different paradigm. Turning pro is the central game-changing strategy in The War of Art, and it's critical to understand this. Turning pro has nothing to do with getting paid for your work or having a fancy title on a business card. It's a mindset, an identity, a way of showing up to your life. The amateur creates when inspired. The professional creates because it's their job. It's what they do. They show up to the page, to the canvas, to the practice room, to the blank spreadsheet, at the same time every single day, no matter what. No matter if they're scared, tired, doubtful, uninspired, or heartbroken. They don't wait for motivation. They have a deep foundational trust that motivation will follow action. They understand that by showing up consistently, they are essentially punching a time clock for their muse. They are summoning the inspiration through labor, not sitting idly by begging for its visit. Think about it in the most mundane terms. You don't wait to feel inspired to brush your teeth. You don't wait for the perfect alignment of stars or for a surge of motivation to go to your day job. You just do it. It's non-negotiable. That is the professional mindset. You must treat your most important creative work, your deepest calling, with that same level of non-negotiable commitment. You don't do it because you feel like it. You do it because it's who you are. You are a person who does the work. And what happens when you make this internal shift? When you decide today to turn pro in your attitude? Something profound begins to change. The entire power dynamic shifts. Every single time you show up and do the work, especially when you don't feel like it, you are landing a direct, solid punch on resistance. It weakens, not all at once. It doesn't vanish in a puff of smoke, but incrementally, day by day, its grip loosens. And in its place, something else begins to grow, something powerful. Momentum. Quiet, compounding momentum. The momentum of a single page written every day becomes a chapter. The momentum of a daily 30-minute practice session builds real skill. The momentum of small, consistent actions on your business idea accumulates into something tangible. And from that momentum grows a new kind of confidence, a quiet, unshakable internal confidence. Not the boisterous, arrogant confidence of someone who's never faced doubt, but the deep-seated confidence that comes from knowing you can count on yourself, that you are someone who keeps their promises to themselves, that you are reliable. This confidence is not dependent on external praise, sales figures, or likes. It's earned in the silent, private hours of showing up. The War of Art also forces us to become detectives of our own avoidance. It exposes the clever, sophisticated disguises of resistance. It's a master of camouflage. Sometimes resistance looks like procrastination, the classic, obvious one. But sometimes it looks like perfectionism, the voice that says it's not good enough to start until you can guarantee a flawless outcome. Sometimes it looks like busy work, furiously cleaning your desk, color-coding your files, helping everyone else with their problems, all while your own core task sits untouched. Sometimes it looks like dramatizing your own struggle, talking endlessly at parties about how hard it is to be a creator, the pain of the artist, instead of actually spending that time creating. Sometimes it looks like victimhood, a compelling story about how your circumstances, your upbringing, the economy, the algorithm, your unsupportive family are holding you back. Sometimes it looks like endless research and planning, a loop of preparation that never, ever leads to launch. Resistance loves it when you're in perpetual consumption mode, scrolling, binge-watching, reading one more book about writing, listening to one more podcast about entrepreneurship, all instead of creating, building, or doing. You see, resistance doesn't necessarily want you to crash and burn in a dramatic public failure. That might galvanize you. It wants something more insidious. It wants you to stay in the safe, comfortable gray zone of potential, where you can always tell yourself the beautiful, sad story, I could have been great if only. Pressfield takes this even deeper. He argues that the work that's calling you, that book, that painting, that business, that fitness journey, that community project, isn't just a hobby or a passing interest. It's a calling, a contribution you are meant to make to the world, no matter how large or small the audience. He believes we all possess a unique gift, a territory of the soul that is ours alone to cultivate. And when we ignore that call, when we neglect that gift, we don't just feel lazy or unfocused, we experience a deep spiritual frustration. That restless anxiety you feel on Sunday nights, that sense of something being fundamentally off even when your life looks fine on paper, that low-grade depression or irritability. Pressfield suggests this isn't a sign of mental weakness or a chemical imbalance in a vacuum. It is the internal conflict, the war between the person you currently are and the person you know you could become. It is your soul's frustration at being silenced, at having its song go unsung. When you finally answer that call, you don't get a free pass. The fear doesn't vanish. The resistance doesn't pack its bags and leave town. The struggle remains, but something powerful and new enters the equation: meaning. The struggle now has a purpose, a direction. The fear is no longer a stop sign blocking your path. It becomes a mile marker, proof that you're on the right, difficult, and worthy road. The pain of discipline replaces the pain of regret.
This book is not a pep talk. It doesn't promise you fame, riches, viral success, or guaranteed acclaim. In fact, it promises you the opposite. It promises you a struggle, a daily, grueling internal war that will last your entire life. There is no finish line where resistance is finally defeated. But in exchange for choosing to fight that war every day, the war of art offers you something more valuable than any trophy, any bestseller list, any external validation: self-respect. When you look in the mirror at the end of a day where you showed up, where you fought resistance for just one focused hour and did the work, you see a different person. You see someone you can trust. Someone who is building a legacy of action, brick by brick, rather than tending a graveyard of good intentions and someday dreams. You stop identifying as a dreamer or an aspiring anything. You start identifying as a doer, a practitioner, a professional. And that identity, forged in the daily battle, is bulletproof. No one can take it from you. Which leads to the final, liberating, and terrifying truth of the war of art. The entire battle is completely, utterly internal. There is no villainous boss holding you back, no oppressive system uniquely designed to thwart you, no cosmic lack of resources or lucky breaks. The gatekeeper is not outside of you. The entire war is fought in the 6-inch space between your ears. It's a civil war. It's between the you of today, comfortable and familiar, and the you of tomorrow, expanded and realized. Every single day, in 100 small moments, you make a choice. You either feed resistance with your excuses, your delays, your rationalizations, your fears, or you starve it with your consistency, your commitment, your courage, your simple, stubborn act of showing up. If you have been stuck, if you have been procrastinating on something you know is vital, if you feel a quiet despair about the widening gap between your reality and your potential, Pressfield's message is the jolt you need. It's the wake-up call. No one is coming to save you. No mentor is going to knock on your door and hand you a finished masterpiece. No perfect partner will arrive to organize your life and give you permission. No divine intervention will lift the burden of starting from your shoulders. The cavalry is not coming.
But this stark realization is also the source of your ultimate power. Because if no one is coming to save you, it means you are the one you've been waiting for. You hold the key. You are the cavalry. The moment you decide, truly decide in your heart to turn pro, to show up not when it's easy and fun, but when it's scheduled, when it's time, the entire universe begins to shift. Not the external universe of circumstances, but the internal universe of your identity, your self-concept, your possibilities. The war of art is never over. There is no permanent victory. But you learn to be a soldier. You learn the tactics of the enemy. You learn to recognize its whispers as the lies they are. And you learn to fight, not with grand, sweeping gestures, but with the humble, daily discipline of showing up. And in that fight, you find something far greater than success or failure. You find your work. And in finding your work, you ultimately find yourself. So the question for you today is no longer if you have resistance. You do. I do. We all do. It's the price of admission for a meaningful life. The only question that matters now, the question this book leaves ringing in your ears, is this. What is the work that you have been avoiding? What is that one thing you know in your bones with a certainty that terrifies you that you must start? Identify it. Name it. That is your battlefield. And today, not tomorrow, not next Monday, not after the holidays, today is the day you pick up your weapon, which is simply your will, and you declare war.